So beyond the boundary is the topic. Lessons from cricket for business. I think, cricket rightly said is a religion in India, but more than that, let's look at the business part of it. There are two things I kind of am pretty intrigued with the way it's happened is we all talk about scaling business and additional revenue streams. Cricket has shown both from India perspective. How they have done it is fascinating. There are lots of businesses we do where there are consumers are passionate, but how to ensure that they become so loyal and you're able to drive media revenue is a case study. I don't know if anyone wants to share their individual experiences in terms of business from cricket. Yeah.
One of the things I was looking at is, when you're managing a brand, you have multiple stakeholders, you have multiple KRAs, so to speak. One thing about cricket is pretty unique for each of the teams, and I'm more focused on the IPL part of it right now, is that you're a brand manager driving only one objective, which is top line growth, for example, which is you have to win. And all your resources are put behind that, which is a fairly unique situation as compared to business, where 1 year you might be focusing on the bottom line, so you might compromise a bit on growth. You don't have any such constraints here. So that's a pretty unique kind of differentiation, so to speak, with the brand business. But I think that brings a unique focus, and that is something that any business can learn. How do you focus on only going after growth, or how do you focus on only winning? Get all your inputs into that. Build your team according to that. Get the support structure oriented towards that growth objective. That's a pretty fascinating, thought that went through my mind when I was thinking about these kind of parallels. And
IPL also brings in the fact that nothing is permanent, right? Because the performance would vary. The factors, vary match after match, year after year. Actually, to see the teams. And that's what business is all about, right? I think that's what we need to accept, that nothing in business is permanent, right? Whether it's your brand standing or your human resource, your competitive advantage, none of that is permanent. So you have to keep reinventing yourself, keep making sure, keep benchmarking like they do in cricket, benchmarking with the other team members, the other teams. So, I think all of that is so relevant. Also, I think one more factor about, since you mentioned about the IPL is the fact that each team has its own strengths, right? These are all kind of region-specific teams with a region-specific fan following. And what you see as a manufacturer is that, while you're competing at a national level, but it's actually the regional competition which becomes very tough because they have so much of a strong, allegiance there. To break that allegiance, you need to do something very different to break into those regional brands. So I think these are some of the things that, IPL evokes.
So talking about regional alliances, I mean, nothing can be better learned from IPL itself and cricket. See, a small inference can be taken from a cricketer called Sanju Samson. He comes from Kerala. He represented Rajasthan Royals. And Malayalis were cheering for Sanju Samson, and hence were not cheering for the local team, but instead were cheering Rajasthan Royals more. Similarly, if you can see the inference of what happened at Chennai Super Kings, how bigger than life the cricketers become over the period of time. Yeah, so Dhoni, being a guy from Ranchi, became a Thala of Tamilians. Who have thought of? And similarly, if you see the other references, it shows that bigger than brand, how the regional references do not count in longer version of the game.
So would you think an icon player, and it's like what Kohli is for Bangalore or for, what Dhoni is for Chennai, does that drive loyalty towards that cricket team instead of, say, I may not be on Chennai, I may be a, Mumbai resident, born and brought up, but still I may want to support Chennai whenever because of Dhoni. So my loyalty has shifted from, from the place where I have been raised to, influenced by an iconic player. So does that happen in business as well? You want to, a product is so good that I am just so hooked into it because of the iconic status attached to it.
See, I think all brands would always any brand would have a natural set of people who go towards the brand for various reasons. And every brand tries to extend itself. And, you'll have a toothpaste brand which wants to build a soap, and a soap brand which wants to make a powder, stuff like that, brand exchange. So if you look at a team like a Chennai Super Kings, it has this natural affinity for Tamil Nadu and Chennai and all of that, and they built it. But to go beyond, they had to bring in somebody else. And I think that's something that brands have to learn from, that if you have to go beyond, then you have to bring something else which is not necessarily core. You have to bring some external affinities which help you build more adherence to your brand and bring in more consumers or whatever the franchise that you want to extend. And I think Virat Kohli with the RCB is a perfect example. I mean, it's a team which never wins. So by that sense, there should be no brand loyalty. It never wins. But because Kohli is there, it's got a set of adherents, and it's just, you watch it and you follow it because, it's Virat's team. So you need to have those things.
What iPhone is to the Apple ecosystem is what Dhoni is to Chennai Super Kings.
Yeah, so that's, and I think every company needs a star, and every company has a star brand. And it's because of that, more than the customer, your distribution supports you, right? Because you have one or two star products, all your other products, will fall in line, right? And then they get a push. Consumer's mind is different because, they segment the products in their minds. So in each segment, you might have a different star. But I think from the distribution point of view, it's very important. Sorry, Indra, you're saying something?
No, perfect. So my personal take is that cricket for many decades has been the most popular, the most loved, perhaps also the most played sport in India. It's been played in gullies and maidans. You just needed a bat, which was a washing thing, and a makeshift ball. And there were always icons. There were people like Gavaskar and Pataudi who always been icons, and people have loved them. But what has happened in the last 20 years, if you look at it from a business perspective, is that potential, the inertia of that potential has been converted into a very large business. And to my mind, that has happened for two or three things that all of you have spoken about. One is the democratization and the nationalization of the game. So it's not a North India game or an East India game. All of India is able to now participate in the game. I think the second thing that has happened is that cricket very smartly was the first sport in India, unlike football or hockey internationally, to adapt itself very well to television. So it became a massive television sport before football could become in India, like football is in the Premier League or in the Latin leagues. So that's something that these other sports missed. The third thing, which I think one should give credit to the IPL, the people who started the IPL, is what you all spoke about, that it has created many, many regional heroes. So people like Dhoni, people from smaller districts, from smaller towns, they were able to come out and they were able to participate in cricket. And you don't really need to be an expert at playing cricket to be an expert in cricket. So every Indian can sort of participate and can engage with the game. So to my mind, what was very organic earlier, somebody said, hey, this can be a fabulous large business which you can channel through multiple new technologies. So now, to me, the latest example is what Reliance did with OTT. They've taken cricket from television to small screens. And the viewership, I think, has grown exponentially, right? That's again very smart from a business perspective. And I see a lot of that happening in cricket, but not in other sports. So to me, these are some of the lessons that I take away from what you all have also spoken about in terms of how cricket has,
I think one taking off away, the whole creating different formats of the game has really driven the popularity. I mean, I don't think if cricket had remained only a 5-day test, that would have achieved the kind of popularity that it has today. So for any brand, you'll have to have different formats as well. Extensions, you'll have different format. Even the same brand, from a sachet to a 5-liter jar or whatever. That's how you consume. So that's how the brand cricket has grown, because you made it so accessible for the common man. Otherwise, it's a specialist game. 5 days, guy will keep coming and doing something. And
I think another factor is, the engagement. It's become an entertainment more than just a game. It's become a, few hours, it's like an entertainment for everyone who's on ground and off ground, right? So, you have this cheer girls, everything else happening on the ground, which is actually from business point of view also is very, very important because, especially businesses that I come from, of course, the ultimate consumer sometimes may not be a part of the decision making. There's an influencer in between. Could be an electrician, could be a contractor, could be an architect, interior designer. Now, if these people are not engaged, right, your brand that doesn't necessarily have to do well. And today, for me to connect or keep the consumer engaged is a very expensive proposition, right? I don't have that kind of a money which perhaps a FMCG brand would have. So how do I use my money to keep these people engaged, the influencers engaged, so that they keep talking about my brand? So I think influencers play a role in actually every product category. It could be a different kind of an influencer, but they play a role in. So I think that's another learning there.
Something interesting earlier about attention. If you could talk more about that.
Yeah, so what I'm told is that we're living in an attention economy. Okay, everybody wants the attention of your consumers, and that attention span is decreasing, massively. From a 30-second reel to now a 6-second, hookup line. Okay, so what's happening here is that as long as we're able to identify with that person within the first few seconds, why is people identify with Dhoni? Why do people identify with Virat Kohli? They see something in them that connects you to them, and then this is the way the loyalty builds towards Dhoni. And my struggle is that what would be Chennai Super Kings without Dhoni? Okay, what would be Bangalore, RCB without Virat Kohli, or Rohit Sharma, Mumbai Indians without Rohit Sharma? And this is where the business side comes important. If suddenly, say, Apple decides to kill its most important product, say iPhone, will it still survive? And what are the different innovations it can look into? So cricket went through the innovation of Test cricket to one day to 2020 and now even 10-10. So from a business point of view, in your natural life cycle of your star product, the moment it goes down the curve, what can business do? And, this is where, you talked about Sanju Samson, arising another competing product, which is basically, taking Rajasthan Royal again as giving it's a new identity. So,
yeah, so I think that is where the brand extensions become important, because if you are able to create multiple categories, right? So you're ensured of a place, right? So that if one category starts doing bad, you have a hook in the market with the other category, right? So it is like, saying that, okay, if there was no Lux today, will Unilever still survive? The answer is yes, because, they have many other hooks, right? So I think it's maybe something akin to that.
But it's a very interesting point because as a brand, you have to, as a portfolio, as a company, you have to prepare this. We've seen, if you remember when Dhoni stepped down as captain and Jadeja came in as captain, I don't think SCSK was prepared for that, at that change. And they didn't put their heart behind that change. So it faltered. Jadeja faltered, his performance dropped, team engagement dropped, and then they took him back, and then Dhoni came back. Now, as a brand, I doubt you will have the luxury of doing all these things. So if you are changing, then you need to put your heart and soul behind that change and drive it with everything. And I think today, Mumbai Indians is trying that change with Hardik coming back and Rohit stepping up. I assume that they will put their heart and soul behind making Hardik successful so that the brand doesn't suffer. And as portfolios come in, you have to put your heart and soul behind it.